Welcome. Today we're diving into the fascinating world of economics, focusing on the law of demand and supply. These two forces are at the heart of every market transaction, influencing what we buy, how much we pay, and even what's available on store shelves. By understanding demand and supply, you'll gain insight into why prices fluctuate and how markets reach equilibrium. Let's start by exploring the basics before moving into the differences between individual and market demand and supply curves, and what causes these curves to shift. Demand refers to the quantity of a good or service that consumers are willing and able to purchase at various prices over a certain period. It's not just about wanting something, it's about having the means to buy it. Demand is influenced by factors like income, tastes, and the prices of related goods. The law of demand states that all else equal, as the price of a good falls, the quantity demanded rises, and vice versa. This inverse relationship is a cornerstone of economics. Individual demand curve shows the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity demanded by a single consumer. On a graph, price is typically on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal. As price decreases, the individual is willing to buy more, creating a downward sloping curve. This curve helps us visualize how one person's purchasing behavior changes with price, but it's just the first step in understanding the bigger market picture. Market demand curve aggregates the individual demand curves of all consumers in a market. It shows the total quantity demanded at each price point. To construct it, we sum the quantities demanded by all individuals at every possible price. The market demand curve is also downward sloping, reflecting the law of demand on a larger scale. This curve is crucial for businesses and policymakers to predict overall market behavior. Supply refers to the quantity of a good or service that producers are willing and able to offer for sale at various prices. The law of supply states that, all else equal, as the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied increases. This positive relationship exists because higher prices can make production more profitable, encouraging suppliers to produce more. Understanding supply is essential for grasping how markets function. Individual supply curve illustrates the relationship between the price of a good and the quantity supplied by a single producer. On a graph, the curve typically slopes upward, showing that as price increases, the producer is willing to supply more. This reflects the incentive for higher profits at higher prices. The individual supply curve is a building block for understanding how all producers together shape the market. Market supply curve combines the supply decisions of all producers in a market. By summing the quantities supplied by each producer at every price, we get the total market supply. Like the individual supply curve, the market supply curve is upward sloping, indicating that higher prices lead to greater quantities supplied. This curve helps us understand how the entire market responds to price changes. While individual demand and supply curves focus on the behavior of a single consumer or producer, market curves aggregate these behaviors across all participants. This aggregation is key to understanding how markets operate as a whole. Market curves provide a broader perspective, showing the collective response to price changes, which is essential for predicting overall market outcomes. Law of demand is a fundamental principle in economics. It states that, holding other factors constant, as the price of a good decreases, the quantity demanded increases. This occurs because consumers are more willing to buy at lower prices, and some may enter the market who couldn't afford the higher price. This relationship is visually represented by the downward sloping demand curve. Law of supply complements the law of demand. It states that, all else equal, as the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied increases. Producers are motivated by the potential for higher profits, so they supply more when prices are high. This is why the supply curve slopes upward, reflecting the direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. Several factors known as determinants can shift the demand curve. These include changes in consumer income, tastes and preferences, prices of related goods, expectations about the future, and the number of buyers in the market. When these factors change, the entire demand curve can shift to the right, increase in demand, or to the left, decrease in demand, even if the price remains the same. Just like demand, supply is influenced by several determinants. These include input prices, technology, expectations, the number of sellers, and government policies such as taxes or subsidies. Changes in these factors can shift the supply curve to the right, increase in supply, or to the left, decrease in supply, regardless of the current price. It's important to distinguish between movements along a curve and shifts of the curve itself. A movement along the demand or supply curve is caused by change in the goods' own price. In contrast, a shift in the curve is caused by changes in other determinants, such as income or technology. Understanding this difference helps clarify how markets respond to various influences. Imagine a new health trend makes a certain fruit very popular. Even if the price stays the same, more people want to buy it, so the demand curve shifts to the right. This increase in demand can lead to higher prices and more quantity sold, showing how non-price factors can influence the market. Suppose a new technology makes it cheaper to produce smartphones. Even if the price remains unchanged, producers can supply more phones, shifting the supply curve to the right. This often leads to lower prices and greater availability, benefiting consumers. Market equilibrium occurs where the demand and supply curves intersect. At this point, the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied and the market clears. Prices tend to move toward this equilibrium, balancing the interests of buyers and sellers. Understanding equilibrium is essential for predicting how markets adjust to changes. When the market price is above equilibrium, there's a surplus, more is supplied than demanded. This puts downward pressure on prices. Conversely, when the price is below equilibrium, there's a shortage, more is demanded than supplied, pushing prices up. These forces help markets self-correct and move toward equilibrium. Price elasticity of demand measures how sensitive the quantity demanded is to a change in price. If demand is elastic, a small price change leads to a large change in quantity demanded. If demand is inelastic, quantity demanded changes little with price. This concept helps businesses and policymakers anticipate consumer reactions to price changes. Similarly, price elasticity of supply measures how much the quantity supplied responds to price changes. If supply is elastic, producers can quickly increase output when prices rise. If it's inelastic, output changes slowly. This affects how quickly markets can adjust to new conditions. When consumers' incomes rise, they can afford to buy more goods, shifting the demand curve to the right. Conversely, a decrease in income shifts demand to the left. This effect is especially strong for normal goods, while inferior goods may see decreased demand as incomes rise. The prices of related goods can also shift demand. If the price of a substitute rises, demand for the original good increases. If the price of a complement rises, demand for the original good decreases. These relationships help explain interconnected market movements. Consumer expectations about future prices or income can shift demand today. If people expect prices to rise, they may buy more now, shifting demand to the right. If they expect lower income, they may cut back, shifting demand to the left. Expectations play a powerful role in market dynamics. When the cost of inputs like labor or raw materials rises, it becomes more expensive to produce goods, shifting the supply curve to the left. If input prices fall, supply increases, shifting the curve to the right. Input costs are a major determinant of supply. Advances in technology can make production more efficient, allowing producers to supply more at every price. This shifts the supply curve to the right. Technology is a key driver of economic growth and market expansion. An increase in the number of sellers in a market boosts the total supply, shifting the supply curve to the right. Fewer sellers mean less supply and a leftward shift. Market entry and exit are important for understanding supply changes. Taxes, subsidies, and regulations can all affect supply. Taxes increase production costs, shifting supply left. Subsidies lower costs, shifting supply right. Regulations can either restrict or encourage supply depending on their nature. Markets are constantly changing as demand and supply curves shift in response to new information, trends, and events. These dynamics create the ever-changing prices and quantities we see in real life. Understanding these shifts is crucial for making informed decisions as a consumer, producer, or policymaker. Consider the gasoline market. When oil prices rise, the cost of producing gasoline increases, shifting the supply curve left. If a new car model is more fuel efficient, demand for gasoline might decrease, shifting the demand curve left. These shifts interact to determine the final market price and quantity. In the smartphone market, a new feature can increase demand, shifting the demand curve right. If production costs fall due to better technology, supply increases, shifting the supply curve right. The interaction of these shifts determines the new equilibrium price and quantity. In the short run, some factors are fixed, so supply and demand may not adjust fully to changes. In the long run, all factors can adjust, leading to larger shifts in supply and demand. This distinction helps explain why markets may react differently over time. Consumer surplus is the difference between what consumers are willing to pay and what they actually pay. It represents the extra benefit consumers receive from market transactions. A higher consumer surplus means greater overall satisfaction for buyers. Producer surplus is the difference between the price producers receive and the minimum they're willing to accept. It measures the benefit to sellers from participating in the market. Like consumer surplus, it's a key indicator of market efficiency. A market is efficient when resources are allocated in a way that maximizes total surplus, consumer plus producer surplus. Efficient markets ensure that goods go to those who value them most and resources are used where they're most productive. Sometimes markets fail to allocate resources efficiently. This can happen due to externalities, market power, or incomplete information. When markets fail, there may be a role for government intervention to improve outcomes. Prices serve as signals in the market, guiding the decisions of buyers and sellers. When demand increases, prices rise, encouraging more supply. When supply increases, prices fall, encouraging more demand. This signaling function helps coordinate market activity. Markets are dynamic. When there's a shock like a sudden change in consumer preferences or a natural disaster, demand and supply curves shift and prices adjust. Over time, these adjustments help restore equilibrium, though the process can be gradual. Graphs are essential tools for visualizing demand and supply. By plotting price and quantity, we can see how curves shift and where equilibrium lies. This visual approach makes it easier to understand complex market interactions. While demand and supply models are powerful, they're simplifications of reality. Real markets can be affected by many unpredictable factors. Still, these models provide a useful framework for understanding basic market mechanisms. We've covered the law of demand and supply, the difference between individual and market curves, and the determinants that cause these curves to shift. Understanding these concepts is essential for analyzing how markets function and respond to changes. Knowing how demand and supply work helps in everyday decisions from shopping to investing. Businesses use these concepts to set prices and plan production, while policymakers rely on them to design effective economic policies. Let's quickly review. Demand is about what consumers want and can buy. Supply is about what producers offer. Both are influenced by price and other factors, and their interaction determines market outcomes. Remember, shifts in demand or supply curves are caused by changes in determinants other than the good's own price. These shifts lead to new equilibrium prices and quantities, reshaping the market landscape. Individual curves reflect the behavior of one consumer or producer, while market curves aggregate everyone's actions. This distinction is vital for understanding both personal and collective market behavior. In summary, the law of demand and supply, along with the concepts of individual and market curves and their determinants, form the foundation of economic analysis. Mastering these ideas empowers you to better understand and navigate the world of markets. Now that you have a solid grasp of demand and supply, you're ready to explore more advanced topics like elasticity, market interventions, and real-world policy applications. Keep building your economic knowledge to make smarter decisions in life and business.